Hello and welcome back to another video. Delighted to be joined again by my good friend Jason Murphy. We're going to be reacting to the Heaney versus Pauls 2 fight in Birmingham last night. How are we, Jason? You well?
I'm good, man. You?
Yeah, really well. Thank you, mate. I mean, what a fight that was. I mean, we expected it to be a good one after the first fight in March, again on
Yeah,
the Magnificent Seven card. Don't want to toot my own horn, but I did predict a late finish for Brad Pauls. I don't get too many right, but
you did.
let's get straight into the thick of it, mate. What did you think about that one?
Fantastic fight. I went the opposite way. I got it completely wrong. I thought that Heaney would have boxed a little bit more on the back foot. I thought he had the better sort of fundamentals. I thought he was strong enough to sort of keep Paul's away from him until later on, and then sort of just pull away from him down the stretch. For me, he just looked sort of from round four. He looked like he just shot his bolt and he didn't have anything
Yeah.
left. It was weird. He looked absolutely exhausted.
100%. A few takeaways I definitely got from it. Heaney definitely started well. You're right. First three rounds. I think I had it 2-1, but Carl
Yeah,
Frampton at TNT had it 3-0 and that kind of thing. He definitely was. He dropped him, didn't he, in the fourth? It was a beautiful right hand that Brad Pauls
yeah,
landed. Similar for me to like the way that the life drained out of AJ when he fought Andy Ruiz when he was dropped.
yeah,
It looked like that kind of thing. But I was watching the watch along with Joel and Jam at Boxing Media Hub. Obviously, shout out to the guys at Boxing Media Hub. They made a good point on Nathan Heaney's conditioning. He looked in phenomenal shape, but when you're carrying that little body fat, even after rehydrating and that kind of thing, he looked like he didn't, he's bone dry still essentially in
yeah.
the ring. It's like, that kind of conditioning, although he looked fantastic on the eye, was he potentially a little bit weight drained in there, do you think, last night?
Something for me. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I mean, it doesn't. He doesn't seem the kind of guy that would make excuses as such.
No,
But
no.
something just, I know he got knocked down, right? But it's not the first time he's been knocked down. And he looked like he'd recovered in terms of he looked like he got his balance back and he was spatially aware. And he seemed to go straight back in again. But he was sort of pouring with his jab, but it looked like it had absolutely nothing there. And he just looked
Yeah,
too keen to hang on. And he just looked like he'd put everything he had into the first 4 or 5 rounds and he just
yeah,
didn't have anything left. It was like, when someone's got someone hurt and they go all out to try stop them and then it doesn't
yeah,
happen and then they
yeah,
end up getting in trouble
yeah.
themselves. It looked a little bit like that. Like
Going out on the shield. Yeah.
he just didn't have anything left for me. And I don't know whether that goes back to boiling down to the weight and not having enough time to rehydrate. But I wouldn't be surprised if they came out this week or somebody within his camp and said, look, he got a bad injury in camp and he's not been able to spar, or he had struggled with the weight and he had to sort of panic weight drain himself for the last couple of days. It just, the way that his cardio just seemed to just disappear I was stunned.
Yeah.
I was stunned. But
Yeah.
I'm not making excuses and saying that's the only reason that Paul's beat him, because the better man won. Paul's
Yeah.
looked a lot stronger than Heaney. His punches seemed to have a little bit more about him on him,
Mhm.
and there seemed to be, he was hurting Heaney, whereas Paul's just didn't seem worried about anything
Yeah.
that was coming back.
That's it. I completely agree. They had a lack of respect for what was coming back from Heaney. That's why I picked Pauls to stop him late in this fight. I thought the way he finished in the first fight, incredibly strong.
Yeah,
Complete power advantage to him. He looked incredibly confident. The whole way throughout the fight, and he knew he could hurt Heaney. To be honest with you, he stung him at the end of the 11th round, and I absolutely love the fact that he came out in the 12th. He was going to win on the judges' scorecard anyway, based on the scores headed into the 12th, I believe. But he left absolutely nothing to chance. He came out and then went out for blood in that last round. So yeah, phenomenal performance for me from Brad Pauls.
yeah, fantastic. I mean, and it's a sort of a springboard in terms of putting him sort of in the mainstream. I think certainly people I spoke to previously had said he'd sort of got lucky and he's not as good as Heaney and he'll get found out this time. I did pick Heaney, but that not for those reasons. I thought it was a 50-50 fight and the result was what it was, but I just thought that Heaney was a little bit better boxer this time, and I wrongly assumed that boxing would be what would get him through the fight. I know Paul's hits hard, but I just thought Heaney would be able to sort of negotiate his way through those tricky spots, and he just got sloppy, didn't he? He threw out a really lazy jab, got countered, and it just completely changed the whole perspective of the fight. It just went downhill really, really quickly for him from that point. But going back to what it'll do for Paul's, I mean, Heaney's well known in terms of mainstream. I know he brings a lot of people from the Stoke area, but nationally he's known a lot. He does a lot of I listen to a lot of sport podcasts, and he does a lot of football podcasts as well as boxing. So he's got a bit of a name. So I think that'll help Paul's in terms of notoriety. I think he's going to gain a lot more fans off the back of that, because Nathan Heaney's a well-liked guy.
He is.
And Brad Pauls is a nice guy. He doesn't talk a lot of trash. There's not a lot of crap comes out of his mouth. He's just a sort of an old school traditional boxing guy. I think it'll do really well for his profile.
For sure. Yeah, so I think it's safe to say that I think we will get Heaney moving up in his next fight for sure. For Brad Pauls, now the world seems to be his oyster. I think his only defeat is to Tyler Denny, if I remember that off the top of my head, which, it's no slouch that, we've seen what Tyler Denny's doing recently. For me now, I don't think middleweight's the most stat division in boxing at all right now. Obviously you have Janibek, who had a terrible weight cut last week. Carlos Adames, who, let's be fair, if Hamza Shiraz beats Denny, he's going to be fighting Adames for the WBC. I'm not saying Brad Paul's going to get a world championship shot next or anything, but probably European kind of. I know.
I think it's
Denny right now, but Hamza Shiraz could be having that. But
I don't think it's hard for a fighter to get a world title shot. I don't think the steps are that challenging. I don't mean that in terms of the quality of opponents. What I mean is it's not saturated weight division, so the path to the world title is fairly easy to negotiate. British level, European level, and then the pick of the champions. And again, without sounding like I'm dismissing the champions are not. I don't have anybody in a pound for pound list within the middleweight division. I don't think there's anybody that is a standout head and shoulders above everybody else. So I think, within a fight or two, if he keeps winning, he definitely could earn himself a shot. I think he sells a lot of tickets as well. So, there is that aspect as well that promoters will look at, potentially bringing one of the champions to one of his local, maybe not arenas, but certainly an event centre or an exhibition centre. I think it could get 4,000 or 5,000 in a venue somewhere over here against one of the champions. So I think he's got maybe a couple of fights, and if he wins those and the notable names, then he could definitely throw himself in the mix, because I know Nathan Heaney's been spoke about in world title and European title fights. He's just outclassed him basically and beat him. There's no question marks on that win. No. So does he get the rub of the green off the back of Nathan Heaney? That's how it's supposed to go. So I don't see no reason why in the next fight or two he shouldn't certainly be knocking on that door.
For sure, yeah, he's got the Queensbury powerhouse behind him now as well. We know Frank's relationship with Saudi and that kind of thing. So absolutely, world is his oyster now for Brad Pauls. But that'll do it, I think, for the Heaney versus Pauls 2 reaction. Thanks, Jason, as always, for joining us, and look forward to seeing what's next for both guys. And we'll catch you next time. Cheers.
See you soon.